Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about various things, but I have another teaching from my little green book. And this one is called the Sandokai from the Zen tradition. It's another one, like the Heart Sutra, it's often recited at Zen centers around the world. The name means something like the identity of relative and absolute. The identity of relative and absolute. So it's another one that is, it's good to really let it land beyond the mind, to feel into it with the heart. Sometimes people will say, listen to the silence between the words, It's, it's very non-dual in its nature. We in our talk previously, something came up. It was said that we have to realize stillness, in order to realize there is no stillness in movement. It's like this. It's so hard to pinpoint what this is that happens in this process, but somehow what we are, this self that we are, this awareness, it's closer than close. So, it's like your still point, or it's like it's you. It's just you. So it's it seems like when it's realized, when it wakes up to itself, stillness is or emptiness is probably the best word that we can use for it, but yet these words are dualistic, so they're incorrect. They're not. We don't have the right word to say what it is. So all of these teachings, like the Sandokai, it's trying to convey, using this dualistic language, what is unconveyable. So the stillness and movement. We know, living in this world of form, there's no, it's impossible for there to be stillness. Everything is moving. As long as your heart in this body is beating, and as long as the blood is moving and food digesting, like there's no end to that. The brain waves are still going, yet we come to stillness. So this awakening, this when they say be still and know, it's pointing to something beyond this world of form. This world of form is a world of motion, of mind. Everything in the world of mind is in movement. So, all these words, they say it's like the finger pointing at the moon, and over we get stuck looking at that finger. And as Alan Watts said, we suck on the finger for comfort. I like that. Yeah, so I'm going to say a little something before we dive into it. So in this one, there's some kind of baggage from Zen, which there's a few parts that are a little obscure. So when we come to those parts, I'll just say what it's talking about. And in Zen, there's a lot of teachings. They talk a lot about mountains and rivers, and so there's a reference in here to mountains and rivers. And I just want to give a little bit of background on what is typically meant by that, because they just sort of reference it in here, but they don't really say what it means. So there's this saying, at the beginning of the path, mountains are mountains and rivers are rivers. But upon acquiring some realization, mountains are no longer mountains, rivers are no longer rivers. But then upon full realization, mountains and rivers just are. And what's meant by that is, at the beginning of the path, mountains are mountains and rivers are rivers. We're in our minds, we're in our concepts. So we have a concept of a mountain, we have a concept of a river. So we're filtering through the language process. So we have these ideas or labels that mountains are mountains, rivers are rivers. Then we start to go on the path, we start to explore, we start to drop the mind, we start to have more and more direct experiences. So the boundary between us and what's out there starts to dissolve, and we enter into this sort of unknown. And it's no longer clear what this is. The inner and outer start to dissolve, merge. So mountains are no longer mountains, rivers are no longer rivers. And then, so this intermediary phase is the phase of, energy and merging, union, and all of that. And then, upon awakening, upon realizing our true nature, then everything just is as it is. So mountains and rivers just are. And, this final realization, Ramana Maharshi would say things sometimes, and they're very enigmatic if you're trying to figure out what he's saying from the mind. He was living on this mountain, Arunachala, and sometimes he would say that the mountain itself is Shiva, and of course, if you filter that through the mind, some people took it literally. And there are people who now worship the mountain. They're like literally like hundreds of thousands of people worshiping this mountain to this day. So the question is, like what makes something sacred? It's where you are. It's sacred ground wherever you are, wherever you're awake. It's the great reality is here and now. It's wherever you are, and that's where he happened to be. So, So it's there. There's going to be the reference at the end of this to mountains and rivers, and the rest I'll just fill in as we go. So this is the Sandokai, or the identity of relative and absolute. The mind of the great sage of India was intimately conveyed from east to west. Among human beings are wise ones and fools, but in the great way there is no northern or southern patriarch. So in Zen, at the time this was written, there were these different patriarchs of Zen, and they were known for different teaching styles and different methods. And there was a lot of controversy at that time, or not controversy, but some people were in one camp or the other, and there was the koan method versus the just sitting method, or some teachers were more rational, some were more heart-centered. So it's just saying, in the great way, there's no northern and southern patriarch. So, in other words, these little differences between these traditions don't really matter. The truth is the truth, basically. The true source is pure and stainless. Branching streams flow through the darkness. To be attached to things is illusion. To encounter the absolute is not yet enlightenment. Each and all the subjective and objective spheres are related and at the same time independent. Related, yet working differently, though each keeps its own place. Form makes the character and appearance different. Sounds distinguish comfort and discomfort. The dark makes all words one. The brightness distinguishes good and bad phrases. The four elements return to their nature as a child to its mother. Fire is hot, wind moves, water is wet, earth hard. Eyes see, ears hear, nose smells, tongue tastes the salt and the sour. In accordance with each dharma, the root gives rise to separate leaves. Root and branch must return to the great reality. The words high and low are used relatively. Within light, there is darkness, but do not try to understand that darkness. Within darkness, there is light, but do not look for that light. Light and darkness are a pair, like the foot before and the foot behind in walking. Each thing has its own intrinsic value and is related to everything else in function and position. Ordinary life fits the absolute as a box and its lid. The absolute works together with the relative, like two arrows meeting in mid-air. Reading words, you should grasp the great reality. Do not judge by any standards. If you do not see the way, you do not see it even as you walk on it. When you walk the way, it is not near, it is not far. If you are deluded, you are mountains and rivers away from it. I respectfully say to those who wish to be enlightened, do not waste your time by night or day. So I'll just let that land, and I don't have anything else to add, really. Last night it was interesting. I had these quotes about stillness, and I was going to read them, and then I sat down, and there was this incredible presence of stillness in the room. And I realized the absurdity of speaking about stillness, to speak about silence, because I had to break the silence to speak about it. And it was already inviting us in. So I have the same kind of feeling here where, more words will just take us away from the truth. So maybe I'll just leave it at that.